Hi, I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders that make it grow. Thank you to this week's sponsor. This week's top story, Executive Director, Certified Development Company Compensation. The SBA closed a CDC out of Philadelphia. One of the reasons cited was they felt the executive director was getting too much money. How much? Listen to Lance Sexton's take on this.
Well, I certainly feel like everybody has deserved competitive compensation for what they do. And one of the things that's exciting for us as SBA participant lenders over the past several years, the SBA specialty has become a high demand area of banking, and the salaries have increased accordingly. But you know, I was a small business owner for a number of years, and my salary never stayed the same. It varied based on the performance of the business. And I think participant lenders and CDCs need to abide by the same sound finance principles. You know, $400K a year is not a bad deal if they're making money, but if they're struggling, continuing to pay yourself that same salary is an issue. So my basic premise on this is, if you have great performance, pay your employees and pay yourself well. If you're struggling, you probably want to reduce that pay.
The reality is if you are in a government loan program and you're making more than the President of the United States, you're a target. Let's move on. Lance Sexton had an interesting discussion, or rather soliloquy, in office hours about how to handle extensions and term outs on SBA Express loans.
Well, the new SOP 5010-5J does require a term out period on those revolving lines of credit. So, Tiffany, in asking the question, you answered the question as well. Great job. But the SOP, one of the challenges that SBA has is we used to have you could do an express revolving line of credit for 7 years with interest-only payments for 7 years. In many of those small business loans, it would get drawn to the full available amount and set at that balance for the full 7-year period. Well, in the SOP 5057-2, you would be allowed at the end of 7 years, you'd have 3 years that you had to term that out. I think what SBA is trying to encourage is revolving lines of credit that actually behave like a revolving line of credit. And if they don't behave like a revolving line of credit, the borrower has enough time of principal and interest payments to actually repay it without creating cash flow issues for the small business. So I think it's a great move. I really do. Again, let's say you do a $350,000 revolving line of credit for a small business. On the old structure of 7 years interest only, they get to the end of 7 years, have a $350,000 balance, and the 5057 will only allow you 3 more years to term it out. They're going to have a pretty substantial payment. It's going to have a very negative impact on cash flow. So I think SBA is trying to not only help SBA, but help us as participant lenders and help the small businesses. And if you look at all of SBA's SOPs, one of the key cornerstones is we want to find a way to let small businesses pay back their loan. And this change is one of them.
Finally, I think you're going to enjoy this interview with a friend of mine, Ami Kassar, who has a new book out, The Growth Dilemma. Very interesting insights, very pertinent to you. As we all know, we all learn one way or the other. When you have a company that is growing, it's going to be sucking cash flow out of the balance sheet, and you as the lender must solve or help bring a solution to that problem. Ami Kassar, President, CEO, founder, multi-funding, now a award-winning bestseller author, The Growth Dilemma. Ami, welcome.
Bob, thanks. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
I enjoy talking with you. Growth Dilemma, determining your entrepreneurial type to find your financing comfort zone. It's a nice read. It's a short read. It's a good read. Bankers are listening to my podcast. Why is this book important to my clientele?
I think it's important to bankers to think about there's a community of business owners and entrepreneurs out there who aren't thinking about debt today, who aren't thinking about growth. They've been through those rough first few years and they've gotten through it, and now they're cash flowing. And they sometimes wear what I call and talk about in the book as the no debt badge of honor. They've been through those rough years and they don't want to do it again. However, the truth of the matter is that for businesses to keep growing and expanding, they often need leverage. And the book is designed to be a tool to help business owners and entrepreneurs think through decisions about how big they want to get, how much risk they want to take, and what financing choices they want to make along the way.
Well, you said no debt is a badge of honor. We're now 8-9 years removed from the Great Recession. And in your practice, are you seeing a more debt, an ability to take on more debt, or a willingness to take on more debt from Main Street?
Well, Bob, what I think how we've evolved our practice in multifunding, which is a national loan brokerage, is we've moved far away from typical loan brokers who are typically working with businesses that are fairly desperate for debt or in trouble or restructuring debt and need help because they're in trouble. And we've moved and evolved to working with businesses who are proactively using debt to grow and expand. So,
I was going to interrupt. Sorry for interrupting you, but you have a great business that you work with entrepreneurs all day long. What have you learned from them that makes you a better business owner?
I think that what I've learned from them is that, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself, but what I've tried to learn is that, there's never one way to skin the cat. And there are always options and there are always alternatives. And the most important thing about being an entrepreneur is remaining inquisitive and open-minded to new possibilities and new routes and new strategies to take. And what I like to do in my speaking, and I do a lot of speaking about the book, and I do growth dilemma workshops around the country for entrepreneurs. And I like to try to open up entrepreneurs' minds to thinking about new ways to grow and expand their businesses and how they can use debt as a positive tool. We, in our practice, we have, I think, less than 5% of our population now is credit challenged.
Nice.
Right. And they're using debt not because they have to, but because they want to, and they're making active choices to grow and expand. And this book is, I tell the story in the book, Bob, about an entrepreneur I met once at a group who had $5 million of AR and was running on a $100,000 line of credit.
Yeah.
Okay. And we see a lot of that, right? We see a lot of, you've gotten through that and there's a real aversion to debt, but we all know that I don't think there's one Fortune 5000 company out there without debt. And so you have to, our goal is to, I don't want anyone to take on a loan just to take it on. I want people to use debt responsibly. And the book gives you tools, it's designed to give you tools to think about that. But I would encourage the bankers out there to consider sharing this book with your prospects or your community. The Growth Dilemma, it's available on Amazon. We're lucky it's become a bestseller pretty quickly. And the Growth Dilemma is, it will help you, it'll open up, even if you give it as a gift, it'll open up your clients' minds to thinking proactively about debt as a tool to help them grow and expand in a responsible
What I enjoyed was the exercise that said, hey, it's okay to take on debt, but where's the corresponding increase in sales? Let's make sure those two things match.
Right. And the book, what we do is and it's an interesting question that I ask in all the workshops that I do around the country. And I would certainly tell the bankers out there, if you're interested in having these workshops done in your communities, we could talk about it. But we ask business owners, entrepreneurs, if we gave them a gift of $1 million, what they would do with it. They can't use it to go buy a vacation house. They have to use it either to invest in their business or in a mutual fund of their choice. And this proactively gets them to start thinking about it and say, well, if I had an extra $1 million, I could put $700,000 in my business and get a 20% return.
Right.
And the question is, well, why aren't you borrowing it? And the tools and the exercises are designed to get the business owners thinking these things through.
All right, as an entrepreneur, I have to ask the question that you ask your people. What keeps Ami Kassar up at night?
Well, I think what keeps me up at night is one of the things that keeps many entrepreneurs up at night is, are you doing enough fast enough? Am I investing enough, not for tomorrow, but for the future? Am I making the right decisions and making the right bets today to guarantee that multi-funding will have the best shot for success 3, 4, or 5 years from now? And there are different ways to skin that cat. So I think that you always have to think through, how much should you responsibly be investing in today? What decisions should you be making? And how aggressive should you be at different stages on the journey to moving towards the future?
Great answer, great read, great resource for bankers. The Growth Dilemma, Ami Kassar, President, CEO, Founder, Multifunding. Ami, thanks for the conversation.
Bob, thank you so much. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you for joining us today for the Coleman Report Update and supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.